Yo, 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 what it do? We have been flowing, making music. I've been teaching my students so much lately, and I've just been trying to figure out the fastest, quickest, and efficient ways that we can just flow into music, you know? Because there should be no rules. You just should have fun. I have a little routine to make a bass line, and then it can just form into a full song, which is really cool. I want to show you what this formed into. This project will be in my Patreon too, and the full unedited raw video if you guys want that. So go in the Patreon for that. Otherwise, let's listen and enjoy the frequencies. Nice. This is the main beef of the sound. This is probably going to be a song of mine, and I'll add a lot more layers, like melodic elements in the drop to kind of fill things out and fill up those spaces that you heard too with sick bass fills. But the main bass is this. And then we have this wide version of it. They both form into this. So strong mono presence, fat, thick, up front in your face. And then a layer that's EQ'd where we don't have any lows, we don't have any mud, and it's just highs, a little bit of mids, and it's wide. We change the patch a little bit, change the oscillators to get it higher frequency. Cool, but these two formed from one main guy. We'll make a new one. And whatever the bass is, if it's missing something or lacking something, then we'll go back and create the supporting layer. That's kind of the idea here. If you want to look at the drum loop too, this is our little drum loop. So if you want to make one similar. Two snares layered together, closed hats. Hip hop style. A little chant too. Of course, sidechain setup too. Now with the serum, this is what we have for our main shape. Square, saw, +1, filter, shaping the frequency, and have some noise for extra fullness. And then we have just simple effects here. Now, with this layer, you see here the hyper and the phaser are turned off because this is our mono layer. But on the other one, this wide layer, we have them turned on. Cool, so let's go ahead and check out a brand new serum. If we want to get something funky, we need to pick a nice scale and start laying down some notes right away. And that's kind of what I did here. You want to have some knowledge on your music theory, because if you don't, then it's going to get confusing and you will get stuck and it won't be as flowy. So you pick a scale. I'm choosing above D because if I do D minor, it's super dark. It's very low on the scale. But if I choose E or F, we're kind of mid-range and there's a lot of nice frequencies we can work with. The sub bass also feels nice. So let's go ahead and turn these off. And we'll start kind of from bare bones, just with the drum loop. I made the drum loop first, and then I started making the bass line. Right now we're going to let the sub play. And we'll go down all the way to octave 0. I can just load up a square right away by pulling wavetable position up. We'll just get in the habit of turning these randoms all the way down every time. so it doesn't randomize the phase. It's just consistent. Now we have the first, which is E, but we also want to use the fifth of the scale. If we count up the highlighted notes, this would be the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So B is our fifth. We're going to be using this note a lot, first and fifth, and then we can kind of create a pattern, create a loop. We kind of just randomly choose notes and go by feeling, go by what we hear. Also, if you see how these two highlighted notes are together, if we utilize these relationships, it creates darkness. It's nice. So anytime I see these, I'm going to use them. I could also do different rhythms, so I could space things out, create a little silence. And call and response is kind of important. So you're like doing something at the beginning and changing it up. And I can do repeatable patterns like this too. And I'm just going to experiment. We can go higher. E is our octave, so we can actually go do these octave jumps too from E to E and play in between as well. You do like maybe E here, do big jumps. And then kind of create some rhythm and groove using these silences here. And then we're going to lots of experimenting, just choosing different spots, listening over and over again, and committing to something when I like it. It's almost like we're kind of just telling a story as it starts to form. Different emotions come. So this is basically loopable at this point. And we have two different sections. You see this half and this half. And then as it loops, it can go back and forth fairly easily. This is a 4-bar loop here. From here, I can start finally sound designing and having fun. So we're going to make a shape, just like move this middle dot to the left. And we're going to turn the filter on so we can start carving frequencies. Add the LFO to the cutoff. We do want to get this loud right away, so we're just going to turn on the compressor, turn it up like to 9, like 6 to 12 is fine, you know. And then we can add OT Tizzle. We can add the VST, and we just like turn this down. Without OTT, with. So it's fat. We also need to understand that the whole time we're playing this, it's in mono. So we're in the middle here. Remember that. I'm going to turn on oscillator B and turn it +1 so I can get some higher frequencies in the mix here. The filter needs to be linked to it, so click B, and now they're linked up. I can move this cutoff knob and change this LFO amount at any time to shape it and change it. I can mess with my rate and listen to different speeds as I'm doing this to kind of figure out what I like. I can even go slower and really mess with the shape however I want, just to get cool feelings, you know? FM from B is good. PD from B on Serum too. This is just the regular square. Sometimes I like to use the other square, so I'll change the wavetable position and test my other basic shapes. Then at any time I could mess with the notes that we're playing. I could try little tricks. I can go, instead of starting at home, I can start on the 5th. And then maybe like go down to the 3rd and then go back home. Kind of make a new pattern. Just going about whatever sounds good, testing different areas. Eventually, over time, it gets easier. But I want to use at least from E0 to E1. I don't want to repeat this same exact thing at the end, so we'll switch it up, give it some pizzazz right here. And then we'll just keep designing the sound. So we're only in mono, remember. So if we start adding hyper, we can get it wide. This really makes it come alive. We can add phaser too. Starts moving, adding extra frequencies. We can mess with the frequency and the feedback knobs and blend it in with this mix. So cool. And of course, mess with the shape while you're doing. If I like this speed and this speed, then I'm gonna remember it and then automate it later so I can use both speeds in the song with automation. That's really cool. Keep in mind though, EQ8, where the lows are here, the sub is here, but we're starting to add these wide effects to it. So now this layer, we can't really use the sub. It's not going to be as fat and as dominant and prominent as we want. So we're going to start to EQ this. We can cut out 100, but if it gets too muddy from 100 to 200, you can start cutting those out. we can even turn this higher. And you can hear we get some higher frequencies. What I did in the original is I would just duplicate it. I call the original one wide and this one mono. And then on this mono one, we leave the sub and we turn off the wide effects. Now this one doesn't have any wide effects. It has its sub. I'll be measuring the sub as I do this too, because I want the sub, if I'm going to use the sub in the patch, I want it to be loud and fat enough. So I'll low pass it and I'll kind of measure what we're at here. This is pretty good. We can go as loud as -8. So if I wanted to turn up the sub more, I definitely could just boost it with this EQ, which I would do sometimes. I just control my frequencies with EQ. Mud will start to build up, so I can cut mud out like this, do these type of dips. Now this is the mono layer with the sub. It's up front in your face. Then we have this wide layer, which we can do +2 now. We can actually go higher in frequency. I can even turn up PD from B. And just make this one a little bit different than the original one. Now both of these will come together and play together now, the mono and the wide. You can see they're both clipping. I will like to add a G clip here because the compression is so heavy, the gain gets pretty high. So just G clip. Now they stay at 0, and then I can turn down the wide if I want. I can kind of choose how I want to blend in that wider, higher frequency signal. Now with a sound like this, I can get the wide version, for example, and just place it here. And in the track, we can just automate this reverb. So turn the reverb on, turn the decay up so it's a big old tail. Automate it so it starts wet. We're automating the dry and wet. Starts wet at 63. Make a dot over where the drop is. We'll just leave this dot and turn it all the way down. And then you can hold Option, click up to curve. This is basically the same technique when I made these basses here. So let's go ahead and work on the patch more and get this even fatter. So I'm really listening to the sub now, trying to get that sub nice and fat. The white noise just turned on. Add the LFO to the noise and turn the LFO amount down to like 25 maybe. We have regular white noise. you can kind of pick any noise, you know, and just mess with the pitch. Kind of pick your favorite, and it sounds fat with the noise. I will add oscillator C, maybe like a spectral, something with way more frequency here. We'll turn the level down, and we'll probably turn the filter. Routes oscillator C. As I pull this up, you'll start to hear that oscillator more. Just turn the noise down a little bit, move this cutoff, and just dial it in. You know, everything's real sensitive now, so I just want to keep listening and then choose what I like. You hear how dominant this resonance peak is? It really makes a big difference. So I want to use some of this. Remember, this is just the first filter. This whole concept that we're using the filter as our main thing is, it can be used on like these combs, on the miscellaneous, these formants. Now you see here the sub is cut though, right? So I could just add the sub back in. Add the LFO, but don't turn the level all the way down. Each one of these filters will give a different sound, texture, tone. So it's real nice to experiment with these. And if you find your little favorite one, it might be a signature part of your sound, you know? You can automate in such cool ways. We'll go back to low 24 maybe. So that's a super steep cut. I'm looking at my Swiss, so we're getting really loud. So I'm gonna start turning the gains down and kind of get to like -5, -3. That's kind of a healthy level that we can be at. I'm going to mess with the shape more. I can double click and pull this down to create this silence at the end and really tighten the shape. So the faster we go, the tighter the shape. The sub is not going completely silent, so if we wanted it to, we could turn the level all the way down. Also, do you see how it's looping? I just want it to play once every time I play a note, so I'm going to put it on envelope. Now I want it to loop, so I put a trigger back on. I'm going to try triplets now, 180. Using the sync, using a higher octave, I get more frequency spectrum and it starts to sound fuller. This is a pretty cool sound. I can go from here and start making variations of it, really dial this in. This one now is the mono version, and then you can add the width. Let's say this higher frequency is just too loud, then I can just turn this level down. And just give it a sprinkle of that. That's making a nice bass quickly, basic shapes, using minimal amount of effects, and then you can quickly duplicate it to make a layer and combine them together. So like this was the mono layer. We'll duplicate it, call it wide, and then make the wide version. So the mono layer, we're going to make sure all these are off, the wide effects. And then on the wide layer, we're going to make sure we cut out all those lows, and we can even make this higher if we want. We might remove the mud too, so like cut it 200 instead, or 150. And then combine both of these together. Then you can easily, so like that repeats for 8 bars, but then it would get boring if it just keeps going. So then you can easily just write something brand new and cool. You know, we'll just start at E this time and make some new random pattern. We'll listen to how it transitions from this one. I can copy this, paste it in the wide layer. And now we have this new little section that forms. It'll be a new 8 bars. Then we have a full 16 bars here. I'm gonna copy these hi-hats to just kind of make it go fast the whole time. Actually, I'll just leave them. I like the bounce. Cool. So you can see how it starts to form. We just work backwards and then other instruments play the melody. We can even paste this again and go a higher octave. We have this piano up here that I already wrote. Gets a little darker, it starts to break down, rises up, drums, sick pre-drop. Nice, and this would be a solid bass line where you could keep adding to it, add more sounds, add an ARP in the background. There's many things you could do to increase the energy from here. But I think that's all that I'm going to show you. I want to show you how powerful it is just to get Serum, use a couple different tricks, and get somewhere far and have fun, most importantly. It's all about the flow, you know? Thank you for all your support all the time. Keep letting me know what you want to see next in the comments. I have a whole list. I'm going to knock them all out, and we're going to learn everything we need to proceed. You guys have a good day. Stay fresh. Keep it real. I'll see you later. Peace.